There was once two great orators of antiquity. One was Demosthenes, and Demosthenes was a Greek. And the other was Cicero. Cicero was a Roman. And it was said of Cicero when he spoke, the people said, "Wow, what a great speech." But it was said of Demosthenes when he spoke, the people said, "Let us march." Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dominique Hannon, and I'm motivated to be in your presence. I want to talk to you about this orator, Demosthenes. Demosthenes had a rough start. He was orphaned at age 7, and his father, also named Demosthenes, left clear instructions to take care of my son, and when he becomes of age, to pass on the inheritance. Now, he was a sword maker, and of course, people got a little greedy, and so that didn't happen. So Demosthenes, when he became of age 20, decided to take on that family to get back that inheritance. 14 talents may not seem like a lot, but in this day and age, it's roughly $11 million. Not too bad. And Demosthenes lost that battle. He gained his guardianship back through perseverance and through his ability to speak. He was only able to get back 10 talents. So that's only about $8 million. Still not too bad. So with all these millions of dollars, that wasn't important. What was important is what he learned about himself. He said, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this stuff. I like to argue. I like to debate." So that's what he did. He found himself. He became a speechwriter. He became a lawyer. He became a politician. And what he did at that point, like all of us, he ran into obstacles in his life. And so I'll just name 3 obstacles that he ran into. Number 1, his love for Athens. You say, what's the big deal about that? Well, you see, there was a gentleman by the name of King Philip II who had plans of conquering all the Greek states. And so obviously that is incongruent with Demosthenes' philosophy of, "I love Athens." That was his first obstacle. The second obstacle, he dressed a little funny. Well, I can't use the words that they used back then, but I think that these days you say he maybe had a little sugar in his roll. But that really wasn't the problem. You see, Demosthenes was always trying to fight city halls, trying to fight the government. And so every time he'd see somebody talking, he'd go run over there and he'd be ill-prepared in his presentation and speeches. So what he did was he'd dress funny. He'd shave his head on one side bald so he'd be a mockery to keep himself from making mistakes by giving speeches ill-prepared. Now, Demosthenes is known as one of the greatest speakers ever, especially in Greek history. If he's a great orator, he does all these things, his third obstacle might be a little bit of a problem. You see, Demosthenes had a speech impediment. So if you stutter and you're an orator, you're a professional speaker, that would be a conflict of interest. That's like being a long-distance runner without legs. It just doesn't work. But like a few of us, we take our obstacle on, our problems on. We don't take them head on. Or what Demosthenes did was, he went down to the beach. He'd pick up pebbles out of the sand, and he'd put them in his mouth. And so, you remember what your mother told you. Don't talk with your mouth full. As you try to talk with something in your mouth, people can still hear you, but you have to over-pronunciate your words. And see, back in those days, they didn't have YouTube and CNN and all. They didn't even have a microphone. What they had to do is they had to go stand what they call a stump. That's where you hear the stump speech. They stood on a tree stump. And they had to project their voice to talk to the large crowds. With all that practice, with yelling into the ocean all his words, he no longer stuttered. And that's why they consider him the great orator. When we as people have problems and obstacles, you need to take them on head on. That's okay. But then you need to do something called have a little style. And the style about you is, for example, with Demosthenes. See, after King Philip died, Demosthenes upped his game. He started trying to create a revolt to stop this from happening. But a gentleman by the name of Alexander the Great, I'm sure you've heard that name, said, that's not going to happen on my watch. And so I'm going to put out a death sentence to anybody who speaks against me or Macedon. And so Demosthenes, being the person that he was, said, Alexander the Great, I'll call him Alexander the Great, stupid boy. Didn't win a lot of hearts. And so Demosthenes was on the run at this point. They sent people after him. And they finally caught up to him in Athens, in a church. And when the guards got to him and said, we got to take you in. And Demosthenes said, if you would allow me to write one last speech, I would appreciate that. And everyone back then knew who he was. He was a great speaker. It's like one of the great speakers of our time, but you know who he is. So they said, sure, we'll let you write that one last speech. So Demosthenes, as he walked towards the door, took his pen, took the top off, and drank it. And inside that pen was poison. He went out with style! So if you have a problem, ladies and gentlemen, of facing obstacles and things in life, you talk about things, you talk about being blind and continue to march. That's what Demosthenes did. Take him as an example, but you have to do it with style. Thank you.